Dakota Johnson just went live to drag Gwyneth Paltrow for allegedly stealing Chris Martin from her, and she is furious. Dakota and Chris have been together for 8 years, and everyone kind of assumed that they were going to get married this year. So imagine how shook we were when we found out that not only were they not getting married, but they had broken up. And while we were trying to process that news, Dakota hit us with the shocking news that Chris has secretly gotten back together with his ex, Gwyneth Paltrow. But, isn't Gwyneth married to someone else? And does this mean that she's going to end her own marriage and get back together with Chris? This is about to be an insanely messy situation, but Dakota is willing to spill all the tea, so let's break it down. When Dakota Johnson and Chris Martin got together in late 2017, they weren't trying to be Hollywood's next power couple. They skipped the spotlight, avoided the red carpet circus, and chose cozy dinners and quiet getaways instead. From the start, their vibe felt different, easy, real, and refreshingly drama-free. People close to them said it wasn't just chemistry. It was a deep mutual respect that made their relationship feel solid, not staged. Dakota didn't just enter Chris's life, she embraced all of it. She built a genuine bond with his kids, Apple and Moses, and fully leaned into the idea of a blended family. It wasn't for show. She was there for the real moments, the everyday memories that actually matter. And in 2021, when she stepped behind the camera to direct Coldplay's Cry 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 video, it was clear this wasn't just love, it was a partnership.
You've been dabbling even outside of film, you've been dabbling in music some, especially with co-directing Cry 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 for Coldplay. Can you talk about that experience and if you were nervous at all then?
That experience was just pretty dreamy, and I am so grateful that I was given the opportunity to do that and make that video. I was working with such incredible artists, people at the top of their game in every department. So I felt extremely privileged to be able to work with those people and make that video.
But like we all know, the strongest relationships face challenges. And for Dakota and Chris, that challenge came from their nonstop careers. Starting from 2024 and into 2025, her packed filming schedule and his global tour kept them in different time zones more often than not. They tried to make time for each other, but reality kept getting in the way. One of them was always on a plane, at a premiere, or performing in another country. People started noticing they were rarely seen together, and that's when the cracks started to show. As time went on, the emotional distance became harder to ignore. Sources say it wasn't just the travel or busy calendars, it was the growing sense that they were no longer living life side by side. Dakota had fully embraced Chris's world, especially his kids, so stepping back wasn't just about ending a romance. It meant letting go of the future she'd pictured. That's why, when things began to fall apart in early 2025, it hit her very hard. By spring 2025, the signs were hard to miss. Dakota was spotted without her engagement ring, and fans didn't waste time connecting the dots. Social media lit up with rumors, and by June, it was official, and the breakup was confirmed. After nearly 8 years together, they quietly ended what many saw as one of the most solid relationships in Hollywood. But let's be honest, a split like this doesn't just happen because of a packed schedule. There had already been quiet talk of trouble before the news went public. Some noticed Chris seemed more wrapped up in his music and constant touring than in planning a future with Dakota. So yes, the demands of their careers played a role, but it turns out that there was more at play than just busy calendars. But there's another layer to all this that has fans talking. While Dakota has been dealing with her own heartbreak, people started noticing that Gwyneth Paltrow, Chris's ex, was popping up more often. And with rumors swirling that her marriage might be on shaky ground, it raised some eyebrows. Was Gwyneth's renewed presence in Chris's life really just about co-parenting, or was there something more going on? Dakota and Gwyneth had always kept things friendly in public, and Gwyneth has been known to go on and on about how much she adores Dakota.
We're actually very good friends. I love her so much. She's an adorable, wonderful person.
In an interview, she said, "I love her. I can see how it would seem weird because it's sort of unconventional, but I think, in this case, just having passed through it iteratively, I just adore her. I always start to think of the ampersand sign. What else can you bring in instead of being resistant to or being made insecure by? There's so much juice in leaning into something like that. But now, people are starting to wonder if there was more happening behind the scenes than anyone let on. There are rumors that Gwyneth has been low-key, trying to reinsert herself into Chris's life because her marriage is not exactly in a good place at the moment. So does this mean that she's about to get a divorce and get back with Chris? What a mess. Okay, before we get into that drama, let's unpack the mess that is Gwyneth Paltrow and Brad Falchuk's marriage. Because woo, it's getting real. The whispers have been around for months, and this isn't just the usual Hollywood tension. Things really started unraveling when Brad's Netflix show The Brothers' Son dropped in January 2025. By March, it was already canceled, 2 months in and done. That kind of flop would shake anyone, especially when it was supposed to be a major career moment. For Brad, it hit hard. While he was processing that setback, Gwyneth was out here thriving. Goop has been on a serious post-pandemic glow-up, and insiders say Brad's been feeling left behind. She has been steadily building her empire, and she's been locked in on turning Goop into a billion-dollar brand, while Brad's been left to pick up the pieces of his career. People close to them say the past 6 months have been rough. They're living totally different lives. She's making great strides in business, and he's stuck trying to figure out his next step. And when one partner is rising while the other is struggling, it creates tension. That imbalance is a recipe for resentment, and it looks like that's exactly what happened here. Now here's where it really starts to get messy. Gwyneth Paltrow and Chris Martin have always been the poster exes since their so-called conscious uncoupling. They've made co-parenting look easy, always putting their kids first and keeping things peaceful. But lately, their bond has been raising eyebrows. With Gwyneth's marriage reportedly on the rocks, people are starting to wonder if she's been leaning on Chris a little more than usual. And let's be real, when your marriage is crumbling and your ex is showing up with calm energy and emotional support, it's easy to see why rumors are swirling. And then there's Dakota Johnson. Like I said, she and Gwyneth didn't just tolerate each other, they actually seemed close. Gwyneth once called Dakota a dream girl in a 2020 interview and said she adored her, which had everyone thinking this was the gold standard of blended families. But now, with Gwyneth spending more time around Chris and her own relationship falling apart, people are questioning if that friendship was ever as real as it looked. Was it genuine? Or was Gwyneth keeping Dakota close for reasons of her own? Picture this. Gwyneth is stressed about her marriage. Brad's off trying to rebuild his career, and Chris is right there, steady and supportive. That kind of setup can blur boundaries fast. Co-parenting is one thing, but when emotional support and shared history come into play, things can get messy. It's already tough dating someone with a close ex, but when that ex starts showing up more during a crisis, that's a whole new kind of pressure. Sources say Gwyneth and Chris have always put their kids first, which is great, but all that closeness may have created some gray areas. Chris is the peacekeeper, so if Gwyneth needed to talk, he'd be there. But that also meant Dakota had to watch her boyfriend's ex become more present in ways that went beyond co-parenting. Now everyone's asking the big question, was Gwyneth Paltrow the quiet reason behind Dakota and Chris's breakup? The timing definitely raises eyebrows. Gwyneth's issues with Brad Falchuk seemed to unravel just as Dakota and Chris were falling apart. It's just a little too convenient. And now, fans think that Gwyneth orchestrated everything, down to the last detail. It kind of makes sense now why she was so accepting and loving of Dakota. Think about it. How many women go about having lunch with their ex's new girlfriend and acting like besties? According to an insider, Dakota now thinks that the reason Gwyneth acted so nice to her was that she wasn't trying to raise suspicion. You know what they say, keep your friends close and your enemies even closer. Dakota had every reason to think she and Gwyneth were genuinely cool. They showed up at events together, smiling and getting along, and Gwyneth always spoke highly of her. But once Brad's career took a hit and their marriage started crumbling, Gwyneth began popping up around Chris more often. People noticed, and the whispers started about how she kept Chris as a backup the whole time. For Dakota, that must have felt like a gut punch. She thought she was building a strong, blended family, only to watch her boyfriend's ex slowly become more involved in ways that felt a little too close for comfort. To be fair, Chris's bond with his kids meant Gwyneth was always going to be in the picture, but it's clear as day that boundaries weren't always expected. So with all this mess, what's next for Dakota and Chris? Fans are still out here hoping for a reunion, but with Gwyneth always in the mix, is there even a chance? There are reports that she and Brad are secretly separated, or as she likes to say, they're consciously uncoupling. And what this means is that if she truly has her eyes set on Chris, the odds are against Dakota. But on the other hand, when it comes to Dakota Johnson and Chris Martin, it never really feels like the door to a reunion is closed. Their relationship has always had its ups and downs, and this latest breakup has fans watching closely for any hint of a comeback. The last time they split in 2019, they were back together within a few months. That kind of history makes it hard to believe this breakup is truly final. Plus, Chris still seems to be into her. The day after we found out that they had broken up, he gave her a shout out on stage after a show, and he asked everyone to go see her new movie.
So much, everybody. Be kind to yourself, be kind to each other. Don't forget to see materialists. We love you. Have a great, safe
However, this time feels more complicated. Like I said, Gwyneth Paltrow's presence is bigger than ever, especially with her own marriage struggles making headlines. She and Chris have always shared a close, almost best friend bond since their conscious uncoupling. This is a messy situation, and something tells me that it's going to get even messier before we're done. Anywho, I want to know how y'all feel about this situation. Do you think that Dakota needs to stay and fight for her man? Or do you think she just needs to let go and let Gwyneth have her way? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and then check out this next video.